thought we'd get more blue flame in the fire.
Oh? What do you know about it?
If you grew up watching The Rifleman, then you know it wasn't just another Western. It had action, heart, and a bond between father and son that felt real. Starring Chuck Connors as the sharpshooting Lucas McCain, the show ran for 5 solid seasons and became a TV classic. But did you know that there's one scene that was never edited out, and once you notice it, you can't unsee it? From missed bloopers to unexpected background mistakes, this classic series has more behind-the-scenes moments than you might think. Join us as we take a closer look at some surprising facts about The Rifleman and that scene that stirred up a wave of curiosity among longtime fans and first-time viewers alike. The classic Western that stood out. More than 60 years have passed since The Rifleman first aired, but the bond between Lucas McCain and his son Mark still lives on in the hearts of fans. For many who grew up in the late 1950s and early 1960s, this wasn't just another TV show. It was part of their weekly life. Families would gather around the screen to watch a story that was more than just cowboys and guns. It was about values, about doing the right thing, and most of all, about a father and son trying to make a life in a tough world. Chuck Connors played Lucas McCain, a rancher and widowed Civil War veteran trying to raise his young son, Mark, played by Johnny Crawford, in the fictional town of North Fork, New Mexico. Set in the 1880s, the show followed their lives, struggles, and the people they met along the way. Each episode was around 30 minutes long, filmed in black and white and aired from 1958 to 1963 on ABC. But even with its short runtime, the show managed to tackle real issues. It showed that second chances were possible, like when Lucas gave former criminals jobs or helped men overcome their past. Even Marshal Micah Torrance, a key character in the show, was a recovering alcoholic who was trusted again. And though Lucas McCain was the hero, he wasn't perfect. He could be stubborn. He was strict and sometimes overprotective of Mark, but that made him real. In one episode, he refuses to believe that a former gunman has turned into a doctor. It takes a dangerous fight for him to finally admit he was wrong. That kind of growth made the characters more relatable and more human. But while the storylines and relationships stole hearts, not everything behind the scenes was so flawless. Some surprising moments and mistakes slipped into the show, and many of them are still being noticed today. One thing that made The Rifleman special was that it showed a single father raising a child, which was rare on TV back then. People saw real emotions, real lessons, and a new kind of hero. But what kept fans glued to the screen? Let's just say it wasn't all perfect, and that makes it even more interesting. What happened in the show? The story followed Lucas McCain, a former Union soldier and widower who was raising his son Mark on a ranch just outside North Fork. Lucas had been in the Civil War and received his commission at the Battle of Five Forks. But in another episode, it said he was at the Battle of Fort Donelson. This kind of timeline confusion popped up more than once. Lucas and Mark had moved from Enid, Oklahoma, after the death of Mark's mother. Their home was rebuilt in August 1881, according to a sign outside. Each episode usually showed a life lesson, a conflict, or a threat to the town. Sometimes it was a thief or a killer, sometimes a personal struggle. But the core of the show was always about doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Lucas was a man of morals. He believed people could change. That's why he hired ex-convicts or former enemies. In one episode, he gave a job to a man who had fought against him in the war. When that man met General Sheridan, the one who injured him, they didn't argue. Sheridan helped him get medical care and said something powerful: bind up the nation's wounds. The show didn't just entertain, it made you think. Speaking of which, one thing that made the show stand out was Lucas McCain's rifle, a gun like no other. The gun in the show wasn't just any gun. It was a Winchester Model 1892 made to shoot fast. But the funny part is that the show was set in 1881, but this gun came out in 1892, which is years later. Still, fans didn't mind the mix-up. They were more amazed by how McCain used it. The rifle had a special lever that allowed Connors to fire shots quickly. He could even spin it around his hand to reload. This trick was called spin cocking, It looked cool, and it made McCain look even tougher. In fact, during the opening credits, he fired 12 shots in just a few seconds. He didn't need to pull the trigger each time. The rifle had a screw that let him shoot as soon as he closed the lever. That small change saved his fingers and gave fans a show. Most of the time, McCain didn't even carry a pistol. He solved a lot of problems with words or smarts. But when he had to shoot, he didn't miss. Over 5 seasons, he killed 120 bad guys. And yet, some episodes didn't need any gunfire at all. That balance made the character more human. But it also opened the door to some behind-the-scenes details that many fans missed the first time around. The man behind the rifle. Lucas McCain wasn't just a hero. He was also a man with flaws. He was trying to build a new life with his son while dealing with his past. He was known across Indian Territory as the Rifleman, and not always in a good way. In some episodes, McCain's personality caused trouble. In Death Trap, he meets a man named Simon Battles, a former gunman turned doctor. McCain refuses to believe he's changed. Only after they fight together does Lucas admit he was wrong. In another episode, Tip Corey, played by Sammy Davis Jr., is seen teaching Mark how to shoot fancy tricks. McCain gets angry and kicks him out. Corey tells McCain he's being a hypocrite because he too had a deadly past. And he wasn't wrong. These kinds of moments made Lucas McCain feel real. Not just a cowboy, but a father, a veteran, and a man trying to be better. The rifle's real story. The gun that made the show famous had its own story. It wasn't just one rifle, but 3. 2 were real Winchester Model 1892s. One was used for close-up scenes, and the other was for regular shots. A third rifle, called El Tigre, was a Spanish copy. It was used when the gun was thrown or used in stunts, so the real ones wouldn't get damaged. These rifles had a screw inside the lever. When the lever closed, it pressed the trigger. That's how Connors could shoot fast without using his finger. Sometimes the screw was taken out, depending on the scene. If a story didn't need action, the rifle just stayed on McCain's back. But when action hit, he was ready. Speaking of which, sound effects were added later, so the gunshots often sounded different. The bullets used were blanks filled with smokeless powder. That's why you didn't see big clouds of smoke. Also, to make sure bullets didn't fall out when Connors spun the rifle, the gun had a plunger added inside. This small change helped everything stay in place and made the action smooth on screen. The rifle used a .44 .40 cartridge, which was common for both rifles and pistols. It made ammo easy to find in the old days. But let's be clear, this gun was built in 1892, and the show was set in 1881. That gap was never explained, but fans didn't care. They loved the style and speed of that weapon. It became a character of its own. Speaking of which, while the Rifleman was well-loved, it wasn't perfect. Over time, fans began noticing small mistakes. In fact, there's one scene that was never edited out. It stayed in the final cut, and now it's going viral. Once you spot it, you can't look away. Maybe it was a slip by the editors. Maybe the producers didn't notice, but the fans sure did. A cowboy ahead of his time. One of the most talked about bloopers in The Rifleman is something you probably wouldn't expect to find in a Western. A fashion mistake. In the early episode titled End of a Young Gun, Lucas McCain is seen working on a wagon wearing jeans with a big W stitched on the back pocket. That may not sound like much until you realize that the W stands for Wrangler. Here's the problem. The Rifleman is set in the 1880s. Wrangler jeans didn't even exist until 1947. That means Lucas McCain was wearing something over 60 years ahead of its time. This blooper didn't get much attention when the show first aired. After all, most people were more focused on the action or the father-son drama. But now, with streaming services and clearer images, fans are spotting these small details and talking about them online. Some even joke that Lucas wasn't just a cowboy, he was a fashion icon way before his time. A trendsetter in the Wild West, they call him. It's just one of those fun little quirks that fans love pointing out, and it adds even more charm to the show's legacy. And believe it or not, this wasn't the only time the show slipped up with wardrobe choices. But let's save that for another time, because there's still more you probably didn't know about how this iconic series came together. Now, it might be hard to believe now, but did you know that Chuck Connors almost didn't become the Rifleman? In fact, he first turned the role down. the struggle to cast Lucas McCain. Back then, Connors was working as a freelance actor. When ABC offered him the role of Lucas McCain, he refused it because the pay was too low. He could earn more by working on different projects. So the producers started looking at other options. Over 40 actors were considered for the role. Then something unexpected happened. The producers took their children to see Old Yeller, a Disney movie in which Connors played a strong, kind father figure. After watching him on the big screen and likely hearing their kids' reactions, the producers had a change of heart. They came back with a better offer. This time it included 5% ownership of the show. That changed everything. Connors accepted the role, and the rest is history. That decision turned out to be one of the smartest moves in television history. Chuck Connors became the heart and soul of the Rifleman. His deep voice, tall presence, and intense eyes brought Lucas McCain to life in a way no one else could. It's hard to imagine the show without him, and it's even harder to believe how close we came to never seeing him in that role. When real life met fiction, The Rifleman was known for its strong emotional moments, and much of that came from the bond between Lucas and Mark. But what made the connection feel so real? Maybe it had something to do with what was happening off-screen. In the episode called Tension, a boy named Toby appears as the son of a family friend. He doesn't have many lines, but his short role left a lasting mark. Why? Because that boy was Jeff Connors, Chuck Connors' real-life son. That small scene became more than just a role. It was a real-life moment between father and son, captured forever on film. And though Jeff Connors only appeared briefly, fans now look back at it as a sweet and meaningful part of the show's history. Sadly, Jeff passed away in 2014, but fans continue to remember him and that special appearance, which tied both real family and TV family together. These moments remind us that The Rifleman wasn't just a show, it was personal. And that feeling of closeness came from more than just the actors. It came from the care and attention that went into building every episode. Even the casting had a story of its own. Casting challenges and more. Behind the heartwarming father-son bond in The Rifleman, there were casting choices that weren't always easy. And one of those challenges was finding the right female lead to match Lucas McCain's strong personality. In Season 3, the character Millie Scott, played by Joan Taylor, seemed like a perfect match for Lucas. Their chemistry was clear, and many fans expected a romance to grow. But then, suddenly, the storyline changed. Millie left the show with a vague excuse, something about needing to head back east. Just like that, she was gone. This left the producers with a big gap to fill. They needed someone new, a woman who could stand beside Chuck Connors on screen and bring fresh energy to the story. So they started searching, and it wasn't easy. Connors himself was involved in the process. He once said, "A few months ago I was handed what I thought was a dream assignment. At least it started out on a dream-like note, but almost snowballed into becoming a nightmare." That's because they auditioned over 60 women. Many looked the part, many had acting experience, but none of them truly clicked with Connors on screen. Until finally they found Patricia Blair. She was a redhead from Texas who brought the exact kind of spark the show needed. Once she joined as Lou Mallory, the show got its rhythm back. But not every story from The Rifleman's early days was about success. For young actor Johnny Crawford, who played Mark McCain, the journey to fame started in a funny, unexpected way. At just 3 years old, Johnny was part of a movie scene with actress Rosalind Russell. The children in the scene were supposed to be given chocolate bars. The director needed to reshoot it, but little Johnny refused to give back his candy. That one stubborn moment meant he was cut from the film and, jokingly, blacklisted as a toddler. Years later, he told the Miami Herald, "I don't remember the picture, and I wound up on the cutting room floor anyway. But I think I got blacklisted after this film because the scene had to be reshot and I refused to give back my chocolate bar for the second take." Of course, Johnny bounced back, and as fans know, he grew up to become one of the most beloved child stars on television. But that chocolate bar story remains a funny reminder of how showbiz doesn't always go according to plan. Some unknown facts. Now we've talked about how so many fans don't know the secret history of the gun used in the show. You see, the Winchester rifle used in The Rifleman wasn't made in the 1880s, which is when the show was set. In fact, it was the model 1892, which came out more than 10 years after the show's timeline. That alone makes it a historical mistake, but there's more to it. This rifle had been seen on screen before. According to producer Arnold Levin, the same gun was first used in the 1939 film Stagecoach. It was John Wayne's rifle, the same one the Duke used when he became a Western legend. The connection between Wayne and the Rifleman added even more value to the show, especially for longtime fans of the genre. But that's not the only strange twist in the show's details. Fans of the Rifleman might also remember the Madeira Hotel. It showed up again and again in different episodes. It was a landmark in the town of North Fork. However, in the pilot episode, the same building was called California House instead. There was no clear reason given. Some people think the name changed because of new ownership between episodes, but really no one knows for sure. It's just another odd little detail that makes fans go back and take a second look. And speaking of things that weren't quite accurate, there was something else that didn't match the time period. In many scenes, women were shown wearing pants, but in real 1880s America, this would have been very unlikely, especially in a town setting. Back then, women and girls were expected to wear long dresses in public, so this costume choice didn't reflect the reality of the time, even though it may have looked normal to viewers in the 1950s. These small errors may not have ruined the show, but they did become a fun part of its legacy. And behind the camera, there were even more surprises to come. Family bonds and baseball cameos. The theme of family was strong in The Rifleman, not just in the script, but in real life, too. One special detail that many fans don't know is that Johnny Crawford's real-life brother, Bobby Crawford, also appeared in the show. He played Freddie in the episode Second Witness. In 1959, both Johnny and Bobby received Emmy nominations, not for the same show, but for their work in separate productions. That year became a proud moment for the Crawford family, and it showed that talent really did run deep in their bloodline. But perhaps the strongest off-screen bond was between Chuck Connors and Johnny Crawford. Connors didn't just play Johnny's dad on TV. He treated him like a son in real life, too. He shared his love of baseball with Johnny and became a kind of mentor. Actor Paul Fix, who played Marshal Micah Torrance, also looked out for Johnny. He was especially careful around the weapons used on set because of a childhood accident he had once experienced when a weapon misfired. That memory stayed with him and made him more protective on set. And speaking of baseball, did you recognize a certain Baseball Hall of Famer who made a guest appearance on the show? In the episode titled The Retired Gun, fans were treated to a surprise. Duke Snider, also known as the Duke of Flatbush, showed up as a character named Wallace. Snider was a big name in baseball, known for his time with the Brooklyn Dodgers. His appearance was exciting for fans who followed both sports and television. And he wasn't the only athlete to appear. Don Drysdale, another well-known baseball star, also had a part in the series. While Chuck Connors had been a professional baseball player himself, he only hit 2 home runs during his career. His time on The Rifleman made him a much bigger star than his time on the field ever did. These guest appearances, real family connections, and off-screen friendships made The Rifleman feel like more than just a Western. They made it feel like home. Speaking of home, The Rifleman wasn't just a show about family. It was a family on and off the screen. Real family, real bonds. Johnny Crawford, who played young Mark McCain, shared more than just scenes with his co-stars. His real-life brother Bobby Crawford also made a special appearance in the show. He played the character Freddie in the episode Second Witness. Bobby and Johnny were both so good at what they did that they earned Emmy nominations in 1959. Bobby, whose full name is Robert Lawrence Crawford Jr., continued acting after his appearance on The Rifleman. He played Andy Sherman on the NBC series Laramie from 1959 to 1960. Today, he is 80 years old and still remembered for his early roles. But Bobby wasn't the only close connection. The bond between Chuck Connors and Johnny Crawford went far beyond acting. Connors wasn't just a co-star, he became a mentor and even a father figure. Off-screen, the two shared a love for baseball, and Connors made a lasting impression on the young actor. Johnny once said, "It was a fascinating part of my education listening to Chuck tell his baseball stories, or he'd be reciting Casey at the bat, or he'd be doing speeches from Shakespeare. This always surprises people, that Chuck Connors knows Shakespeare," he told the Buffalo News. Their close friendship was captured in many behind-the-scenes photos, showing the respect and warmth they had for each other. And they weren't the only ones who shared this bond. Actor Paul Fix, who played Marshal Micah Torrance, also felt responsible for Johnny Crawford. During filming, he took extra care to make sure the weapons on set were secure. This wasn't just a job for him, it was personal. As a child, Fix had a near-death experience when a weapon misfired. A bullet came close to killing him. That moment stayed with him, and he made sure nothing like that would happen around young actors on set. These real-life relationships made the emotional moments in The Rifleman feel even more authentic. And the surprises didn't stop there. Funny twists, bloopers, and unusual casting. While The Rifleman is remembered for its powerful stories, the show also had its share of strange casting choices and funny bloopers. One surprising twist came when Buddy Hackett, known mostly for comedy, appeared in a serious role. In one episode, Hackett played Daniel Malachi, a father whose two sons land in jail. The catch was that one of the actors playing his son, Christopher Dark, was actually 4 years older than Hackett. Hackett was born in 1924, while Dark was born in 1920. Hollywood often plays with age, but this one really pushed the line. Still, viewers enjoyed the performance, and it became another quirky part of the show's history. Another surprise came in the episode The Babysitter. The sweet baby girl character named Fancy was actually played by a boy, Robert Anaker. His name might not be familiar, but that small role stood out as one of the many unexpected details that made fans smile. There were also noticeable differences between the time the show was set and the way the characters looked. Though The Rifleman took place in the 1880s, most of the actors had 1950s and 1960s hairstyles. Not just that, many of the men wore button-down shirts, which was a style that didn't even exist in the 1880s. These shirts only started to appear in the 1920s and weren't really popular until the 1930s. So even though the story was set in the Old West, the fashion looked more like mid-century America. But not every surprise was about clothes or casting. One of the most unexpected guest stars was Sammy Davis Jr. Known as Mr. Show Business, Davis appeared in the episode 2 Ounces of Tin as an outlaw named Tip Corey. He amazed the cast and crew by performing all his gun tricks and quick draws himself. No stand-in was used. His talent with a gun and smooth moves left everyone impressed. Even the pilot episode of The Rifleman came with a twist. It was originally meant for Gunsmoke, 1955. In that version, Chuck Connors played a character named John McCain, who didn't have a son and was known for being an expert with a pistol, not a rifle. These strange casting choices, hairstyle mishaps, and swapped-out names might seem small, but they all became part of the show's charm. Still, some stories connected even more deeply with the lives of the actors themselves. Some of the most touching moments weren't part of the script, they came from real life, and no story stands out more than the one behind the man who led the show, Chuck Connors' life, legacy, and final days. Chuck Connors wasn't just an actor. He was also a gifted athlete. In fact, he was one of only 12 people in history to play both Major League Baseball and in the NBA. That made him a rare kind of star, someone who stood out in both sports and entertainment. But Connors also had some struggles. He was a heavy smoker, reportedly going through 3 packs of Camel cigarettes every day. In the fall of 1992, he was hospitalized due to pneumonia. Just 3 weeks later, he died from lung cancer. He was 71 years old when he passed away. Connors was buried at San Fernando Mission Cemetery, and his headstone proudly displays the logos of all 3 sports teams he played for: the Boston Celtics, the Chicago Cubs, and the Brooklyn Dodgers. His death was a loss to fans everywhere. But even today, his role as Lucas McCain lives on. He showed viewers what it meant to be strong, loving, and sometimes even flawed, all while protecting his son with a rifle in hand. The legacy of The Rifleman continues to grow. It's a show filled with powerful moments, surprising guests, little-known mistakes, and meaningful stories. Every detail, from a baby boy playing a girl to real-life brothers sharing scenes to Sammy Davis Jr. doing his own stunts, adds to the magic that made The Rifleman unforgettable. A show with flaws and bloopers. Besides that, there were other bloopers. Some were small, like a scene showing the wrong rifle model for the time. Others were about timelines. In one episode, a Confederate soldier says McCain captured him after a battle, but in another, McCain got his commission in a different war. These mix-ups didn't match up, but most people didn't notice back then. There were also differences in how the rifle looked. Early episodes used a round D-style loop. Later ones had a flatter lever. Sometimes the rifle had a saddle ring. Sometimes it didn't. Small things, yes. But die-hard fans catch them all. And the best part is that these errors don't ruin the show. If anything, they make it more fun to watch now, like hidden Easter eggs in a classic film. So next time you see McCain spin that rifle, take a closer look. You might just catch something the producers didn't. And if you do, you're not alone. Have you ever noticed any bloopers or hidden details in The Rifleman that we didn't mention? And what was your favorite episode or moment from the show that still sticks with you today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.